Canada's job numbers are tanking, unemployment is rising, and the economy is on the absolute edge. And of course, the mainstream media is going to cover up for the Liberal government, which has been in power for the last 10 years, and conveniently blame it on a scapegoat as they cover up, in my opinion, what is election interference we're seeing happen in real time again. And they also are running cover for China. We are seeing such similar things coming out of China. Is that how our media wants to be represented in comparison with Chinese state media? Mark Carney's already making policy announcements that are showing they have no intention of actually developing what's right for Canada. So let's get into it.
Madam Speaker, I would.
For most of the last 90 years, Eastern Alberta has been represented in the House of Commons by a member of Parliament with conservative values. Now known as Battle River Crowfoot, it's Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre's intent to run in the riding to secure a seat in Ottawa.
Having the leaders as your area is obviously an advantage, but...
Last week, MP Damien Keurig pledged to step aside to allow Poilievre to run for his seat. The party leader lost his seat in Ottawa in the recent federal election, but in Battle River Crowfoot, Keurig claimed 82% of the votes.
So it's funny to watch, like, these people try and run cover now. Like, how is he allowed to step down? And Pierre is allowed to just switch where he runs. Mark Carney literally kicked out a guy and then banned him, and he flew in from another country and did this exact thing, and nobody had any problems with it.
At the end of the day, it's really about, we are a conservative area, and just making sure we have representative, and having the leader represent us, not a bad thing. But again, I'm very proud of the work Damien's done with this, and we've been blessed to have him.
The longest ballot committee plans to put forward dozens of candidates for the vote, just as they did in Poilievre's Carleton riding last month.
It's clearly intended as a protest to try to put pressure on government to change the electoral process, to have something like proportional representation or perhaps even a ranked ballot.
Okay, so that Lori lady sucks. That's the same lady that I featured in the video when I was talking about how the mainstream media was running stories about Danielle Smith bringing a team of 4 down to meet with Trump and it costing $10,000. And they're running cover for this group. Okay, so in Pierre's writing, there were 91 names allegedly submitted. That was the number that I saw. At the very least, they were trying to create the longest ballot. It was almost a meter long. That's how many names had to be added. And now they're trying to do the same thing in his new riding. And the media has the audacity to say, well, this is just an activist group just trying to, really get the message out there and create a better, voting atmosphere and change things for better representation. Then why are they only doing it against conservatives in Pierre? How convenient is that the group is literally only doing it against conservatives in Pierre, but somehow they're this, group that's just trying to fight for change. Really convenient, guys. And it's just kind of disgusting behavior to see that from the media. Let's get into some of the talk about Carney's new cabinet that he's working on.
Hi, Rachel. Good to see you. So what do we know so far?
Hey, Renee. Yes, so Rideau Hall has just confirmed that Mark Carney and his new cabinet are going to be sworn in on Tuesday at Rideau Hall. That ceremony is set to take place at 10:30 a.m. As for what we know beyond that, Renee, frankly, little. Right now, there's a ton of speculation in this city about what Carney's new cabinet is going to look like, whether it's going to be larger than the one he selected just before the election. We do know, though, from his press conference this time last week, that he is committed to upholding gender parity, for example, and promising a more efficient cabinet. So we'll see what that means.
Oh, good. He's committed to gender parity. Yeah, this is a parody of real life, because to devolve your picks down to just gender parity, this video, the entire video is 4 minutes and 32 seconds. And not once does she say they're overly qualified, the names that they're looking at. He wants to go with who's best suited for the role. He wants to go with who can bring the most. They don't talk about the actual impact these people are going to have. Everything is just like, oh yeah, it's going to be efficient. Will there be less numbers? Will there be more? Do we make sure that we have gender parity? It's going to be 50-50 so that we have full representation. How about we do what's best for the country of Canada? Because as we get into these numbers later, you will see it is absolutely government mismanagement, which has gotten Canada to the point you can see we were plummeting by almost every economic metric, which again, we will get into, and it is all due to government mismanagement. So it's crazy to me that we are listening to these ladies talk about this, like, oh, he's committed to gender parity. Oh, really? No one can get a job. So I'm glad that these women can.
Now, this is a very big deal because of all the talks with Donald Trump and the tariffs, isn't it, Rachel?
Absolutely. So one of the big questions, Renee, is whether Mark Carney is going to choose to keep that core group that he brought to D.C. earlier this week to meet with Donald Trump and his officials in their current posts. These are folks like Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, International Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who have been hard at work on these files over the course of the campaign and the lead up to it, and whether or not Mark Carney wants to keep those people in those positions to keep building on the relationships they have built, or if he is looking to kind of set a new and start a refresh. There's also some questions around some of the high-profile recruits that Mark Carney was able to get to run for the Liberals in the last.
Again, high-profile recruits, not that high-qualified, not that these are people who are going to be important, because they just said themselves, this is a huge deal. We're dealing with Donald Trump. We got to take him on. If we got Trump to take on, let's send in our best. Nope, they don't say that. They don't say that at all. So it's like embarrassing and annoying. So then look at this announcement. Again, they directly say that all of these numbers are from Donald Trump when they're not. We're going to disprove it in a second. But listen to this announcement.
His unemployment rate rose in April, with Canada's manufacturers shedding 31,000 jobs as American tariffs battered the sector. Stats Canada says the Canadian economy added 7,400 jobs last month, but the unemployment rate rose by 0.2 of a point to 6.9%. Alberta added 15,000 jobs. The unemployment rate here unchanged at 7.1%. The higher jobless rate in Alberta and Canada suggests hiring is not keeping up with population growth.
Did you catch that at the end there? Hiring is not keeping up with population growth. Mount up, Patriots. Now, he specifically said it's Donald Trump's tariffs that are massacring the sector, and that's the reason for all the job losses. As of right now, there's a 90-day pause on all of the high tariffs. So these companies have not technically been hit by the high tariffs yet. There's some underlying baseline 10% tariffs, but not enough that this should be a meaningful amount. What's been happening is Canada has been on an economic hangover for 10 years, basically. And then we also got sick while we were already sick. So yeah, your body can't fight off the infection as well when it's already running on fumes. And that's what's been happening because we've been abusing our body, the economy, for 10 years, just stretching it out. So then now they get to conveniently say, oh, it's all Trump's fault. But you'll see when we get into these numbers, like this is another economist getting into what's going on. And again, they said at the end there, oh, Canada's job growth is not keeping up with the population growth. Well, that's certainly not the childbirths, because I don't think we have babies working, needing jobs. So what they're obviously talking about, which they didn't say, is immigration, okay? Immigration. Now, on this channel and forever, we've been saying, hey, does too many immigrants really affect jobs? Is it bad for everybody, only good for the large corporations? Because what happens is they get to keep wages low and then hire all of these immigrants. There's all these government subsidies for immigrants who they hire, and then youth unemployment struggles. People can't get jobs, all of these things. And then you go, well, you can't blame the immigrants because you can't get a job. Yeah. I think we can, and we're seeing that in real time, but no economist will actually say it like that outright. They won't say, listen, we have way too much immigration. It's hurting wages. It's hurting jobs because we are seeing job vacancies shrink, and we are seeing our growth skyrocket, and which means there's more people, less jobs, which they get to keep wages low. Again, who hurts? The immigrants. I'm not saying the immigrants are bad for this. I'm saying they are the direct cause for this, which, of course, yes, the government is the one who let them in, so we have to blame the government. But to say the immigrants are not a reason for this is extremely disingenuous, or you're just lying.
We saw a big loss in the manufacturing sector in April, 31,000 jobs. Ontario, a net loss of 33,000. Are those numbers as scary as they appear?
They are. In fact, they confirm some of our worst fears about the impacts of Donald Trump's tariffs. We've seen announcements of particular layoffs in the auto sector, the steel sector, and other manufacturing industries. But to see the aggregate number reach that size in 1 month, very worrisome. It shows that Trump's tariffs are already taking a bite out of us.
And how much are we worried that some of those jobs might not be coming back, even if we do reach an agreement with the U.S. on tariffs?
Well, obviously, the erratic and unpredictable nature of Trump's decisions is just casting a huge pall over all investment and production decisions. So, even if he woke up tomorrow morning and said, guess what, I was just kidding, I love Canada, no tariffs, people wouldn't believe him, and with good reason. So I think we are going to see more job losses, regardless of what he does. Hopefully, if in coming months our government can negotiate some kind of sensible resolution to this madness, then we'll gradually restore confidence and we'll get those jobs back.
Yeah, our government known for our awesome negotiations, which let's show an example of our negotiations, because who did Donald Trump just figure out a trade deal with? The UK. They got things going because they're actively doing what needs to be done. The Canadian government is so bad at their job, so unbelievably bad at their job, that we've been trying. Keep in mind, the UK and us are both Commonwealth nations, mount up patriots. And here's what we have, a tweet here from the food professor. And he said, the US and the UK are expected to announce a new trade deal today, a painful reminder that Britain walked away from a potential agreement with Canada less than 2 years ago. So obviously his tweet was before the actual announcement had happened. Well, let's find an article from, whatever, I think it's like close to 14, 18 months ago. The title of this article is UK walks away from trade talks with Canada. Sticking points include how much access UK producers should have with the Canadian cheese market, which he says in this tweet. The reason? Supply management. So we can see that this was happening, all the way back years ago. Just talk about this meeting from May 6, 2023. British negotiators walked away from trade talks with Canada Thursday, a dramatic development that taps the brakes on a bilateral trade deal between the two Commonwealth nations that has been years in the making, and they walked away. Is it Trump's fault? Can we blame Donald Trump for this? Because it looks to me like this was an issue that Canada did, because like we've talked about in my other videos, we have so many interprovincial regulations which are just shooting ourselves in the foot economically. Like Canada is just run by bureaucracy and bozos is like the best way. It's the BB technique that we like to run here in Canada. And a major sticking point between the two sides remains how much tariff-free access the UK producers should have to the Canadian cheese market. We as a country have had decades to figure out new trade deals. Now we made ourselves reliant 100% on the US. We could not get our frickin' foot out of our mouth and get these trade deals going. And this is how you end up with stats like this. We have this tweet here from Daniel Foch. She said, Canada is now out of the top 10 countries on the Economist Humans Development Index. So what does that actually mean? It means health, it means education, and the actual standard of living. And we are falling. We've went down to the 16th position. So to be fair, there's a couple factors in there. Some countries did just start to perform better, but Canada has been falling on all three of those metrics. Like, can you think of anybody who's recently been like, I'm really happy with Canada's, education sector? You got all the teachers who, for some reason, how do we end up with the teachers that we do? Come on. And they, I understand teachers work hard, but why are they all just left-wing weirdos? It just somehow works out that way. And then, of course, you have health. Well, Canada's healthcare system, more stressed, less services. Again, immigration, definitely having a factor on that. And then, of course, one of the other things is the standard of living. And as we know, GDP per capita, one of the signals essentially of standard of living, is also falling because we just talked about it. But let's get into these real numbers here because they are staggering. When you look at this, you have this, if you guys, I'll remove my photo so you can see the whole thing, but the widening gap between public, private, and self-employment. How is our public sector continuing to grow? We have no growth in private, and self-employment is on the way down. That is not what you want to see because Canada's largest employment sector is small business, which would include a lot of the self-employment people and, the private sector. Well, can we just have where 100 people are employed by the government? And look what happens when you have no trade deals, you have no investment in your economy, you have high taxes, you have bad setup entirely. You end up with this. And this to me is so embarrassing and frustrating. Canada public sector productivity and employment. Not only do we have skyrocketing employment, they are less efficient. So their productivity is down. We are paying them more money. They are getting more jobs. There's more people than ever in the public sector, and Canadians are getting worse service. And a lot of that is, if I'm being honest, somehow a lot of immigrants are getting hired into the public sector. And I don't understand how you have so many unemployed Canadians, and then you go to try and get government services and they don't speak English, which is wild to me. And then you see, oh, turns out productivity's falling as well. Oh, coincidence? I think so. Let's get everybody on the case because, we get Sherlock Holmes on there. But anyway, I'm going to put so this tweet thread is an incredibly important read. It's from Richard Diaz. If you guys know who that is, he runs an economics podcast. It's called The Loonie Hour. It focuses a lot on Canada. The other two guys are a little like softball with their answers. He's the only one who will call out things that need to actually be called out. And when we talk about calling out things that need to be called out, we had all of these underlying economic problems this whole time. But now we get to conveniently go, oh, well, it's all Donald Trump's fault. It's not the 10 years of poor liberal management focusing on identity politics, woke ideology, all of these like nonsense things, government job and money printing, which is not productive. And I've been yelling about government jobs for so long on this channel because now it's like 1 in 4 Canadians are public sector. And if you're watching this in your public sector, I don't have a problem with you personally. I shared this before on the channel. I've been job hunting for 3 years to try and get into more of like private sector companies into like productive roles. And there just weren't hiring. It's just been an extremely slow process. I couldn't even get interviews for, and you're seeing that all over online. And when you talk about running cover for numbers, we have these reports breaking massive China economic crisis so bad that the CCP has blocked the reporting of Chinese economic data. So I'm not going to take any credit for this because I get a lot of my news through other people as well. But I've talked about it on the channel before. China's not doing as well as everybody thinks. For some reason, people thought that China's just like crushing it. They've got a birth crisis just like us. And there's even estimates that their birth numbers their actual population numbers, are way off from what's actually been put out in the media. And China controls their state media. Canada controls their state media. And we can see what happens is people buy the garbage. And in Canada, it's mostly liberal boomers or, left-wing weirdos who like to buy the slop that comes out. And then, oh, okay, well, here's the state media. This guy's talking about China's economy is an export-driven economy where the world's, and he's saying we are, so he's American. I was watching some of his videos, which we'll get into. We're the world's biggest customer. They can't survive without us, and now we're seeing it unravel. Exact same scenario as Canada. China was on a downtrend. If you guys saw all of their real estate problems, the Evergrande issue, and most of people's savings in China was starting to go into real estate, especially real estate development. They were just building to like pad their GDP numbers. It was insane. And now it's a house of cards that's falling apart. And we're seeing that in real time. But we actually do have a video of some Americans meeting with some Chinese delegates and trying to figure out negotiations to see if they can get a trade deal done. So let's get into that.
We need to go to Canada as soon as possible.
Oh, Canada. Okay, that's pretty far. Gonna cost a lot of money. Let's see. How many people?
4.
Okay, 4 people. Canada costs a lot of money. Gonna be about $6,500.
How about $50?
$50? You flying to Canada costs at least $3,000.
Somebody tell the news that it costs at least $3,000 because, Danielle Smith took all that flack for flying down to Florida with 4 people for $10K.
$55.
Hey, stop wasting my time at $55. No way I'd take my plane to Canada for less than $1,000.
Okay, $60.
$62.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'm glad they were able to negotiate a deal there because we honestly need America and China to work together, and that'll be a lot better for the markets. Although Bitcoin's kind of ripping. Are you guys into crypto at all? Comment down below if you are. Also, sign up for Wealthsimple. Link is down and below. You get $25. I get $25. Awesome. Or I did put the buy me a coffee down there if you just want to help support the channel because, like I said, I am in between careers right now, so anything helps. But let's go into these articles here. China can't afford a trade war and Trump knows it. This is before the tariffs were actually in place. And this is the same guy who was putting out these tweets. I was going over his articles. He was putting out a lot of information. And, he's talking about Beijing just rang in the Chinese New Year, but it doesn't have a lot to celebrate. The usual suspects in America warn for the apocalyptic consequences to Americans of Trump's new tariffs. In reality, it's China that's teetering on the brink because, again, same thing as Canada. They were under pressure before all of these trade negotiations happened. And he gets into it here, just listening to these videos. We can see if you don't have the counter side of the media, and of course, Fox News is not perfect, so I'm not going to say like they're just an immediate perfect agency, but you get to see because, the CNN or CBC, oh, it's so scary and China's going to take over. Let's hear what this guy has to say, who's the, Chinese trade expert.
Bring in Martin Capital founder, CEO, Rod Martin. And Rod, when you hear that this tariff effort will result in a new global world order with China at the top and somehow America on the outside looking in, what are your thoughts?
It's just absurd. And for all the reasons you've just stated, America is the indispensable nation and particularly indispensable to China. We're their biggest trading partner. We're just about everybody's biggest trading partner, and we buy a lot more than we sell. Now, we need to fix that. We certainly need to open their markets to more American products. We need to manufacture more. We certainly need to produce a lot more energy and export it, especially to our allies. But the truth is, we buy a lot of stuff, 1.2 trillion more this last year than we sold. And that means they can't do without us. How on earth are they going to stay afloat if they lose their biggest customer?
Exactly. China can't lose their biggest customer. Canada can't lose their biggest customer. And at the end of the day, America is a consumer nation. Let's be honest. So it's going to keep that way. They've offloaded their luxury. That's just how America is going to be set up. Are they going to bring back a lot of manufacturing? Absolutely. And I do think America over the next decade is going to do very well, especially if they absorb Canada as the 51st state. Talked about it in the other video. I think America could be this new empire that's built. People are always talking about BRICS, and I'm not a BRICS guy because, for one, those nations hate each other. And two, they have so much internal corruption that's worse than even us. There's no way those nations work together, create this new economic entity that's going to take out America, especially if America puts this refocus into all these trade deals and rebuilding everything. If you made it this far in the video, I love the economics episodes. I get so jacked up talking about it. So thank you. You absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe because, of course, we have to show everybody the other side of things. It helps get the channel in front of more people, and have a great rest of your day.